All right, I think we're on and we're ready. How are you, Katie?
I'm good. Nice to see you, Belinda.
Nice to see you too. Thank you so much for agreeing to this interview.
Happy to.
I am going to start with your bio.
Mhm.
Okay. Katie Hamilton is a California Medical Board licensed midwife, certified professional midwife, childbirth educator, and international board certified lactation consultant. Katie attends home births in the South Bay and surrounding LA area. Katie believes that when the birthing person is the primary decision maker for herself and her child, she can be an active giver of birth rather than a passive receiver of birth technology. Giving birth under one's own power helps a parent to emerge from the experience empowered with a new sense of her own capabilities. That's powerful.
Yeah, I actually have goosebumps.
Me too. Me
So
too.
after all these years, so I guess I'm in the right field.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, it's so meaningful. So I want to start with, the fact that your bio is very much aligned with the quote that you have on the homepage of your website, which when I read was like, whoa, like mind blowing, right? So the quote is the whole point of woman centered birth is the knowledge that a woman is the birth power source. She may need and deserve help but in essence, she always had, currently has, and will have that power.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me how you came to this philosophy, this statement, this place where you stand.
Yeah. Well, and does it say who quoted that? Because I didn't say it, but
Oh, I didn't put that down.
yeah.
Oops. You'll have to jump
I,
on her
I just
website
I
to
just
see
want
who
to give
quoted.
credit where credit is due.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah, but yes, the birthing person, is the authority of their body, and we are the authority of our bodies and what happens to our bodies. And I think that this idea that birth is a medical procedure, I mean, we might need medical help, but in and of itself, it's a normal process. Sometimes I tell people, like, it's a period with the baby, you know,
Hmm.
it's just different this month,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's a
So
little bit more painful than a period.
yeah, absolutely. But if we think of it as a normal process, you're not getting your gallbladder removed. Sometimes cesarean, of course, is necessary and life-saving, and we need more medical intervention when things are not normal, and or the woman is not low risk, or the birthing person is not low risk. But for the majority of birthing people, they are low risk. Excuse me. I got this. Thank you. They are, um, many are healthy and low risk. And so having midwifery care, and having home birth and being able to have a little more autonomy over their birth process, is perfectly reasonable. Um, but and even, yes, I do home birth, I do out of hospital birth, but I'm really like to think of myself as an advocate for all birthing people. In the hospital too, in when there is medical necessity, that all of those preferences, and the humanity of it does not have to go out the window. You can have a C-section and you can be supported, you can be loved on, you can have doula support, you can have, a doctor that asks you, so tell me about how you would like this C-section. It doesn't need to be a
What?
surgical procedure. We can
Really?
bring babies skin to skin, and we can play the music you want to listen to, and we can make it a beautiful rite of passage,
I had
um,
no clue.
as it should be. So anyway, I could go on and on. I have a passion, obviously, for home birth at home, but I worked for many years in the hospital advocating and just making sure that while there was this, uh, medical support happening, that we also maintained that this was a sacred rite of passage, not just for both parents and family members, and for this child coming into the world
Yeah.
deserves to have a welcome, a gentle welcoming, and a loving environment, not just bright lights and shouting and being kind of manhandled and
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I had a hospital birth and I didn't know any of that.
Yeah,
It
you
was
do
very
better.
like
Yeah,
very just fast and quick and over with.
yeah,
Wasn't very like gentle or nurturing at all.
yeah.
So going back to the quote and the power of the birth, every parent has a mama bear in them,
Mhm.
and that does come from a deep knowledge of empowerment, I think. Can you share how your practice helps connect new mothers to their intuition?
Mhm. Well, with midwifery care, we are co we are collaborators. It isn't like you come to the midwife and I tell you what to do. I am supporting, I'm educating, obviously, maybe making some recommendations, but everything is tell me about what you know about your body. What is it you want for this baby, for this birth, at this moment in your life? And really meeting people where they are individually, and taking care of the person holistically, so that we can really make this about um, that individual and that family. And so, I have clients who I really feel like they learn a lot about themselves through midwifery care, and they might not know, they might just think of it as, well, you tell me, you're the midwife. But my goal is to constantly, put it back to them and say, well, you tell me what kind of greens do you like to eat, and what kind of exercise do you like to do, and what kind of relationship with your partner would you like to have at this birth, so that there's a kind of a journey of self exploration happening, which is,
So wonderful.
and that's happening anyway with birth, right? It's one of the most creative things that we can do is be pregnant. And so with that nesting that we talk about, we go almost kind of stereotype women as, oh, you're irrational and you're nesting, you're trying to got to buy everything for the baby shower, and we have this sort of this image of this complaining uh woman who's, whatever we stereotype pregnant women as. If we look at that sort of, what is the need behind that? There's a really beautiful need to provide this incredible, this environment, you know um to nurture and grow a human being. And so I want to really kind of help people tune into what are those, what is the root of the needs and the cravings and the desires that they have. um
Very interesting that the way that you present everything, because when I listen to what you're saying and I go back to thinking about what my birth experience was like and being pregnant, had I had somebody like you who was talking me through what are your needs, what are your wants, and all of that, then I would have connected more, I think, with the birth. Because for me, the birthing process was very just kind of perfunctory.
yeah,
Oh, we're pregnant. Now I just got to eat a lot. And then then okay, the baby's okay. This is how it's growing. Okay, now it's time to give birth. And you give birth, and you come home and just like, now what do we do? And then we pull out like that book of what to expect in the first year. And then it's like, okay, the milestones that it's literally like a machine.
yes,
We're a machine. It's a machine. We just got to make sure it hits its milestones. Whereas it doesn't need to be that way. And like once I found my way into Waldorf education,
yeah,
and you understand the development of a child, then a little bit of me was like, man, I really would like to have a kid
yeah,
again to really revel and enjoy watching the development unfold, as opposed to just like, is she meeting this? Is she meeting that? Is she meeting? You know what I mean? Like it's terrible. Um, And then I also think back to my mom, when, when she had gotten divorced, and she's like later on in life, I'm talking to her, and she was like, well, once I got divorced, I figured out what I really like. Because before then it was whatever your father wanted, I got and did for him. And then you guys came along. It was whatever you guys wanted, whatever you did. So I did everything for you guys. And by the way, when I got divorced, I realized I don't like cooking. I don't like to eat this stuff. I don't like to eat that stuff. I don't like to do this. Hi, had she had you or a midwife for the birthing process, it would have been like, oh no, I have my needs. I know what I want, and I know what I want for this child, and I know what I want for our family.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's I do a lot of undoing. People say, "Well, tell me what I should do, should do, should do." And I'm like, "Well, let's toss this idea away and this idea. You don't have to have a fancy nursery and you don't have to let's undo some of the beliefs that, we've just sort of culturally grown up to believe that you can't, you have to have x amount of this, and you've got to you're focused on the numbers and the weight,
Yes.
prenatal vitamins, and the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, and I can't eat sushi and can I eat kombucha, instead of just enjoying. I mean, some of that stuff sure is important, but
Right, don't drink alcohol like all day long.
all the do's and don'ts, and yeah, and
Yeah,
then it's over, so I'm undoing a lot of the assumptions. And like you said, it sounds like you kind of backtracked into, wait, here's the like whole child philosophy, right? And you kind of like went in reverse and went, ooh, how could I apply some of the um conscientiousness, like, you know how does the earlier experiences contribute to that? I similar I can never say that word. Similar I can't. Say it for me.
similar,
Similarly.
similarly.
Thank you. I was in early childhood education,
Yeah,
and I always I'm thinking, how do I get to the root? How do I get to the root of supporting this family? And then I got into nutrition. How do I healthy bodies and healthy minds and healthy
mhm,
guts? And I kind of kept going back and back and back. And I'm like, well, it starts in utero, and it
yeah,
starts prior to that, you know. And so that's why I do what I do now, because I really do think that, peace on earth kind of begins at birth. It kind of sounds goofy,
yes,
but
yes,
like
absolutely. Even
there's
before birth,
yeah.
right? We have an activator on our site. She is a singing coach, and she talks about how humming is so important to a baby when they're
Mm,
in utero. It
mm.
creates a connection between, you and your baby, which is lovely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So going back to a hospital birth versus a home birth.
Yeah.
Um, I have friends who had hospital births for their firstborn, even like C-sections, right? And then they were introduced to the idea of a home birth and did home births for their second or third, and found that the experience was exponentially better.
Mhm.
Shorter labor, more relaxed, etc. Why do you think home births seem to go so much more smoothly?
Well, I will say, in your friend's situation, many times the second you only have your first baby the first once, right? It's usually a longer drawn out thing, home or hospital.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of these people have a hospital birth and it's challenging, and then they have the second one at home and it's so easy. Yes, of course, there's a lot of things that make it great at home, but in fairness, labors do tend to be shorter and a little more straightforward the second time. So there's that.
Okay.
And I do have a lot of second time, third time parents coming into care, but also first time parents. And we it's work. It's still work, but I think one of the main differences is, there's a couple of them, but being in your environment right from the beginning. The issue with having to go to the hospital is there's again this focus on numbers. Well, how long are the contractions and how close are they and how frequent are they and this and that, and the focus we get in our frontal cortex, instead of being in this primal place, we
Mhm.
invite our partners to come join us, and then from 1 to 4 a.m everybody's on their phone, they're timing, and then
Mhm.
the app starts flashing, go to the hospital, and she's going, well, really? Like they're frequent, but they're not strong. Well, the little app's not going to tell you how strong they are. So then everybody goes into the hospital early, and usually they say, oh, come on in, let's give you a little Pitocin, and we'll just start it up and get you in bed. And now somebody who was actually going to go into labor the next night or 2 nights is
Oh,
having an induction in the hospital setting. And so it draws out the process.
I see.
At home, we can, watch a movie, bake a cake, do a jigsaw puzzle. Oh,
Yes.
there's a cramp. Okay, big deal. Call my midwife, My midwife says everything's fine. And then so that early piece of labor, we're not, or prodromal, or, whatever you want to call it, isn't really called labor. It's just warm up. It's just practice. And we don't make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Saving that person's energy so that they can sleep the first night, wake up at 3 a.m., their water breaks, and have a reasonable labor.
I see. Yes.
Yeah, they've saved their energy. Saving their energy is key to avoid, pain medication should they want to avoid it. And then the other thing is just having, you know, the tools. I mean, you're in your home environment, so you have your favorite food, and you have your favorite drinks, and you have maybe your environment is, either favorite flowers, and you've got the neighbor next door saying you got this, and grandma checking in, and your children, should you still have them, you're just more relaxed. I mean, I'm even an intervention if you think about it like that. Even the midwife is an intervention to physiological birth.
Mm-hmm.
So I really try and protect that for people.
Yeah.
And it just looks different when that safe, quiet space is protected. We're mammals. We're not
Yeah.
supposed to be birthing, we don't have intercourse in a room full of people, and we don't go to the bathroom with a room full of people.
Right. Right.
So yeah, kept dark and cozy, things tend to go very normally.
Well, also, I've had several friends that have shared their birth videos with me. And I think that's really beautiful too, because when they had the water birth at home and the father is with the mother inside the water, and then the children are around too, to witness all of that, that's a lot of being held.
It's a lot
And
of
also, what
oxytocin.
a great experience for the father.
Yeah,
Are
right.
they always in the tub with?
Not always,
It's a
no.
choice.
Yeah, it's a choice, whatever they feel comfortable with. But
Um,
absolutely, we have this culture of partners that are saying, "Oh, your wife's pregnant. Oh, trust me, just don't look, get that epidural as fast as possible."
yeah.
And when I have partners who have observed birth like that, I tell them, share it, please. Like tell this story so that we can change this dialogue.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. To make it more warm and comfortable and
Yeah.
more connective.
And yes, and you're right, immediately they're involved.
Yes.
Immediately this changes postpartum. This impacts bonding, with not just the mother, but also the partner with the baby and the children. It impacts the bonding. The parents
Yes.
haven't left the house for 3 days, and they come back with this little swaddled crying thing.
Right.
They
That everyone,
saw what happened. Yeah,
just pampering
right. It's their baby. It's the family's baby.
the
So
family's baby.
yeah,
It totally changes the dynamics.
yeah, yeah.
That's so nice. It's just, there's just so much benefits, so many benefits. Oh, and also, I see that a lot of midwives, doulas, have do Reiki or sort of energy work. And so I know I have a friend who had said when she was giving a hospital birth and her baby was breech, and they were like, "Oh no, it's breech. We're gonna have to do C-section." And her mother came and was just like, "Hold on a second," and she just sort of like moved her hands around and was able to kind of like get the baby to position properly.
Wow.
And I'm wondering, do like I would imagine is do midwives do that as well? Sort of help facilitate that sometimes?
Yeah, so some of us have different modalities, and if we don't, we know where to go, where to send people. You're absolutely right there, and there's this traditional knowledge that has been passed down from generation to generation, and to throw all of that out and just go with the technological model, we're missing a lot. So for example, somebody who's breech, there's many different things. First of all, noticing it in a timely fashion. Sometimes it doesn't really get seen till the last minute, and then people aren't giving a choice of doing anything about it. But we actually touch the belly, and not all, there's some wonderful OBs, that I work very closely with, but not all touch the belly. And so we can palpate for position. We can palpate when they're posterior or not moving or not engaged or breech. And so we're able to almost like, try and prevent things before they do become a problem. And that's with nutrition, that's with baby's position. Um, and then put our feelers out to chiropractic or massage or Reiki or yeah.
All of the modalities that are
Yeah,
available to us.
yeah.
That's wonderful. So, like, what is the what's like the timeline of, let's say, when you get pregnant and you start working with the midwife? How long is that? When would I first call a midwife? Then, after the baby comes, how long are you accessible?
Yeah. So this last year with COVID, there was a lot of, hey, my baby's due tomorrow. Can you take me on? So there was that. It was a little different. I actually had someone hire me on her due date. I spent like a full day with her, and thankfully the baby wasn't born until the next week, and it was a
Oh,
beautiful
great.
birth. But usually, people start putting their feelers out in the first trimester, especially if they've always wanted to have a home birth. And we do all the lab work, so I can do all the early genetic testing.
Oh, wonderful.
Only thing we don't do is ultrasounds, and if I have to send someone in for a perinatology consultation. But so we can start early and sort of check in on the health of the pregnancy and nutrition and all of that. And then it's the standard OB schedule. So about every 4 weeks until 28 weeks, I usually go to the home. And then at 2 weeks, at 28 weeks, we meet every 2 weeks. And then at 36 weeks, we meet weekly. And then after the birth, I do a 24-hour visit and do all the newborn screening, and should they wish, check in on congenital heart defect screening, and check in on the baby and the mom and vitals and all of that. So you have a 24-hour visit, and then I do a 3-day visit because I'm a lactation consultant. And I love, love, love that. I did do my IBCLC because I feel like that little piece right in there, day 3, day 4, the support, especially in the hospital setting, because you're usually home by then, is lacking. And that's when things get tough. Baby wakes up, where's the milk? Too much milk, not enough milk. So day 3 is one of my favorite days to visit. And then I do a 2-week visit, and then I do a 6-week visit. So we're screening if there's mood stuff going on, if there's, breast infections, if there's continued bleeding. I'm looking out for mom and baby, obviously working closely with the pediatrician too. Yeah, so it can be quite a long trek.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
wonderful to have that hand holding.
yeah.
Yeah, and so you generally work then for the postpartum support that your team offers. That's usually for 6 weeks after, or is that like a separate thing that they, sort of keep you on for postpartum support even after the 6 weeks? And what
I
kind
mean,
of,
I'm always available, but it's standard in midwifery care, the prenatal care, the birth, and then continued visits postpartum.
okay.
Versus with a doctor, you typically birth, leave the hospital 1 to 2 days later, and then see your doctor at 6 weeks to sort of be told, all right, you can start having them again. So I really think that having those extra visits postpartum is, I mean, It's not really debatable. It's essential. It's lacking. It's
It's
lacking.
definitely essential. I mean, I was reading this book. What's it called? Bringing Up Bebe. I
Oh,
think that's the name of it. Did you read it?
I've heard little snippets here and there.
It's the cutest, but they
Is it?
say she gave birth in France, and in
Yeah.
France, you are given a night nurse that goes
Oh.
home with you. It's part
Oh,
of
okay.
the package of having a baby,
Hmm.
and that's super helpful. It's just helpful to have somebody there. I think a lot of people, if they're lucky enough, they do have their moms
Yeah.
nearby. But a professional like a midwife would be really helpful too, just sort of like an outside person that's able to
Yeah.
consult and help you along.
And I think there's some balance too, because there's night nurses and postpartum doulas, and I think it's nice to have support. But sometimes some of these professionals will come in and they just take over the whole thing, and then somebody who actually was like, wait, no, I wanted to co-sleep with my baby and I wanted to breastfeed at night, is like, oh wait, but if I do that, then you don't have a job, and there's someone who's taking care of the baby all night. So it could be helpful if there's twins or preemies, or a situation where there's only single parent. But
Yeah,
sometimes too much support is like, hey, I try and tell people, like, you're okay, like, I'm here if you need me, but I'm also not going to overwhelm you with, and you need this and you need that and you need to
yes,
do it
yes.
by yourself at some point as well.
And that again takes away your empowerment, because I feel like
Exactly.
you probably feel so vulnerable after you have a child. And so if someone's telling you like, no, you don't want to do that, or you don't want to do that because it's their own perspective,
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, okay. And
Yeah.
then you end up regretting it, 3 years in, like, oh, I should have just not let that person do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm just so intrigued by midwifery, and just kind of that process, because when I learn more about it, it's really, if you were to compare, not to belittle the hospital system, but if you were to compare having a birth in a hospital where it's more mechanic and technological, then you sort of set that path of not connecting and just sort of seeing your child as something that you need to just kind of like fill all day long and
Mhm.
teach and make sure they hit milestones and XYZ, as opposed to the wonder of this baby coming into this earth,
Yeah.
into your arms, into your
Yeah.
husband's arms, into the family. And like you see this child as the actual being that it is.
Yeah, it's certainly when birth is supported, whether it be home or hospital, I do think it is an easier transition to just trust. I told my client the other day, she had a 2-day, overnight labor at home, and she did beautifully and trusted the process. And the baby comes out and she has lots of questions about, okay, and how many grams and how many ounces, and I said, this is really, really normal that you're hyper vigilant about this baby. Your mom, you want to do everything you can to ensure that this baby gets everything that he needs. But I also want you just trusted your body. So trust this baby. This baby knows a lot. They come hardwired to ensure their survival, most of them. So they have all the reflexes and all the ability to say, I'm hungry. Okay, I'm full. Okay, I'm hungry again. So trust the process. And when someone didn't have their birth story sort of just kind of taken away from them, the ability to get a chance to see how strong they can be,
Yeah.
medicated or unmedicated, just literally not having the ability to speak for themselves, it then all of a sudden they've got this tiny little baby and they're already questioning, well, but I don't know, I don't know, they know, like, birth was so hard, I better just, what does the pediatrician say I should do, formula, okay, because the autonomy is just sort of stripped away.
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
so yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see how popular midwives are these days, and how people are choosing them. It's how many resources there are in
Yeah.
Los Angeles. There's so many. I mean, I imagine there's so many everywhere. So it's really nice to have access to that. So, what else do you offer? When people go on mamanurture.com.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, mainly, I have a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, and I have a baby. I mean, I did it again 10 years later. So I keep a kind of a small client load, and my goal is to not like just attend. I wish I could, but it's impossible. I like to have a small number of people and really give my all to them. So yeah, I offer midwifery and lactation consultations, mainly in the South Bay and Los Angeles area. Here and
Perfect.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Did we cover everything? Is there anything else you might like to add?
I could honestly talk birth all day. I will listen to this interview and go, I should have said this and this and this, and I like to go off on tangents. So
I love that. So, if you do think of things that you could have said, should have said, then ping me an email and we'll do another interview because I want to talk about birth all day long too because it's so magical and I don't know much about it. I had a C-section and I literally I don't know why, but I was very tired and once it whipped the baby out of me, I literally fell right to sleep.
wow.
I never
Yeah.
saw Dylan until later on.
Mm,
I think Greg stayed with her. Greg followed her to get bathed and all of that. And,
yeah.
he fell in love with her right away. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whose baby is this?
Oh.
So yes, let's talk births more often.
Okay. Sounds good,
Thank
Belinda.
you so much
Anytime.
for your time, Katie.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.